Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah writes in his autobiography about the Independence Day and the events about it. Very interesting narrative. Pages 281 to 287. Thank you for putting this there for me, producer. Let's get to the narrative and see what the Osajifo is saying. So this is a conversation. Most of what is captured in the Osajifo commentary is a conversation between himself and Sir Noble Arden Clark, who was the governor at the time, the highest colonial authority, the governor at the time here in Ghana was Sir Charles Noble Arden Clark. And this is Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the prime minister, the leader of government business, becoming prime minister. And this account is given by Nkrumah in his book, the day that the British colonial authority in the British Parliament told us that we are going to have independence on 6th of March. I've had this conversation with a few people. When we watched the BBC documentary, the video that we've showed you today, that says, at long last, the battle has ended in Ghana. It's not a declaration of independence at all. It was a political rally of the CPP. Recently, I interviewed Cameron Dodo in 2017. Cameron Dodo is almost 90 years old. He's a journalist in 2017, and Cameron Dodo said that he was there that day, and he confirmed that it was a CPP rally. It was a rally that occurred after the closing of the existing parliament on the 5th of March. Dr. Nkrumah had gone to the parliament to close up the parliament. He writes about it. When he had finished, his supporters, especially Krobo Edusei, had told him that crowds had gathered outside Parliament House. And where it occurred is just outside Parliament House. That crowds had gathered outside Parliament House and they were waiting to hear from him. Nkrumah said that he was very tired and that he had been to the airport that day so many times receiving dignitaries. But Krobo and Kojo and Kingsley Hayford compelled him to go and at least speak to the crowd. He said that when he got there, he was impressed with the kind of organization that Krobo Edusei had put together. The police band was there, the Ghana flag and the British flag, everything was ready for him. It was the enthusiasm of the crowd that charged the man whose destiny had really come on that day, the 5th of March 1957. Everything in Nkrumah had arrived in the world. Nkrumah was sitting on top of the world. He had worked hard for it, and he had the power, the circumstance, and the pomp to match the occasion. And so he delivered a powerful extempo speech 67 years after the fact. We still watch that video, and it still looks like a video that can send you some revelation. It's a video that can send you some power and that can give you some hope. So that's what happened. And it was a rare spectacle for those who saw it. He arrived there without a prepared speech. He was told that the crowd is there, say something to them. And then he started prophesying everything, that after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. All of that happened on the night. So by that night, independence had already been won in 1956. What we were waiting for in 1957 was a date. So on 31st December 1956, almost every Ghanaian knew that Ghana is independent. And the date is going to be 6th March 1957 because you needed a date for invitation cards to go out for the preparation of this is a big event, the first African country to be independent. There are about 10 balls, presidential balls occurring in the night. The American vice president was coming. The British colonial authority was coming. They don't come from 5th March to 6th March. We don't decide that on the 5th of March. And then on the 6th of March, we have everybody in the country. I think that's something that as children, we never even thought about. And so we always thought Nkrumah had done the Declaration of Independence. No, he didn't do a Declaration of Independence. Independence had been given in September of 1956. And the timetable had taken the independence date to 6th March, which was selected by our parliament because Dr. Dankwa had said that 6th March was the day on which the bond of 1844 was signed. So at every 6th March, every epochal 6th March, it's important for us to relook at our relationship with the colonial authority. So 6th March was chosen so that we'll have a proper start of the bond of 1844 and the end of the bond of 1844. That's why the date of 6th March was chosen. It was selected by J.B. Dankwa. The date of 6th March and the name Ghana were both selected by Dankwa. All the accounts show it. So that's not something to talk about. But here's Arden Clark and Nkrumah. Let's get to the account and see what is in it. So Nkrumah begins. It was Monday, the 17th September. I had a full, please viewers, keep this date in mind. It's very, very important. The date of the 17th September that Nkrumah writes is important because he's going to use this date to calculate his birthday. And we are going to see that in his autobiography, published in 1960, Nkrumah gave the date of his birthday. But then we come to Ghana in 2010 and we're choosing a date to celebrate Nkrumah's birthday. And then TR Minister brings 21 September, which is wrong because Osagyefo didn't say that his birthday is 21 September. He said what day his birthday is. You see it. It was Monday, 18 September. I had a full morning's work ahead of me and I was going over my diary of appointments. Suddenly, there was a ring from the telephone that connected me direct with the governor. "Good morning, Prime Minister," he said Sir Charles. Quote, Prime Minister is talking. "I just wanted to tell you that I had received some good news for you. I wondered if you could come up and see me for a few minutes when you are free." Okay, very nice conversation. Nkrumah speaks. "Yes, certainly, Sir Charles," I said. As I hurriedly scanned through my appointment, Nkrumah continued, "I'm afraid this morning is pretty hectic. Will 3 o'clock this afternoon be all right?" I believe the governor said yes, and then we cut the story and continue. Nkrumah says, "I arrived at the government house promptly. If there had been any doubts in my mind as to the contents of the message that was awaiting me, the look of pleasure on Sir Charles's face as I entered his office swept it away at once. He shook my hand firmly and warmly, and then handed me a dispatch from the Secretary of State." Now let me just put some context to that. So they said Charles Noble Adom-Clark. His office is at the present-day Ministry of Interior. You see why history is beautiful. Sir Charles Adom-Clark is sitting at the Ministry of Interior. That's his office. The Prime Minister is keeping an office at he has one office at, you know, that building that used many years ago used to be American Embassy. It's now the office of the Minister for Gender. That is the Prime Minister's office. That place, that building. Buzia also, not the same building, but that area, that spot. Buzia also used as Prime Minister in 1969. That was Nkrumah's office as Prime Minister, leader of government business. At that time, he was setting up Flagstaff House, which is today Jubilee House. So a call comes from Sir Clark, from Ministry of Interior. It's almost a walking distance, up to where Nkrumah's office is. And he says that, "I'm busy, Governor. I'll see you at 3 o'clock. All right. So he arrived in the governor's office. And the governor took his hand. The story continues. As Nkrumah was reading the dispatch, he says, "When I reached the fifth one, however, the tears of joy that I had difficulty in hiding blurred the rest of the document. After a few minutes, I raised my eyes to meet those of the governor. For some moments, there was nothing either of us could say. Perhaps we were both looking back over the 7 years of our association, beginning with doubts, suspicions, and misunderstandings, then acknowledging the growth of trust, sincerity, and friendship, and now, finally, this moment of victory for us both, a moment beyond description and a moment that could never be entirely recaptured." "Prime Minister," the governor said, as he extended his hand to me, "this is a great day for you. It is the end of what you have struggled for," unquote. "It is the end of what we have been struggling for, Sir Charles," I corrected him. "You have contributed a great deal towards this. In fact, I might not have succeeded without your help and cooperation. This is a very happy day for us both." I shall never forget that night, Nkrumah continues. How I was going to keep that store of dynamite in my chest without exploding, I just didn't know. People came as usual, as they talked as usual, but not once could I forget that vital information. Usually, nothing can prevent me from sleeping, Nkrumah says. During the very worst crisis of my life, I've always managed to escape from realities by laying my head on a pillow and drifting into a deep sleep. But on this night, I lay for a long time sleepless, while the whole story of my life passed before me like some kind of pageant. I saw myself as a boy in Nzima, as a proud scholar in Achimota, as a struggling student at Lincoln. I saw myself in London, where my studies gave way to politics, my return to the Gold Coast, the struggles that ensued both from within and without, detention, positive action, imprisonment, my final acceptance as a politician, events which were only the beginning of bigger and bigger struggles and intrigues. Then, after almost 10 long years of it all, those few words that represent the end of the road, the end of what had sometimes seemed to be a never-ending struggle. Just a few words on paper handed over to me quietly by the man who had both imprisoned and released me and who had since afforded me every encouragement in my arduous task. Quote, the 6th of March, I said to myself, the 6th of March, the 6th of March. This day will never be forgotten. The 6th of March, Independence Day. We'll be jolly, merry, and gay. The 6th of March, Independence Day, Ghana. Okay, let's move on. The day following the news was my 47th birthday. This is my problem here. Nkrumah wrote it in 1960. He said, the day following this was my 47th birthday. He was talking about 17th September. Then he says, the day after was my 47th birthday. Why is the Interior Minister of 2009? Go and bring him. He doesn't read books. Why? Why is he embarrassing us? So if you go abroad as a Ghanaian student and they ask you, Kwame Nkrumah, I say, oh, we have a birthday for Kwame Nkrumah. And they said, oh, okay, that must be 18th September. He said, no, it's 21st. Say, but why? The man said he was born on 18th. Why is your country celebrating another day? That's embarrassing. This is Nkrumah writing. This book was published in 1960. You want to hide something from a black man, they say, put it in a book. You want to hide something from a black man, don't put it in the bush. We will go to the bush. Don't put it in the sea. We will swim to the sea and get it. Don't put it on the field. We'll find it. Put it in a book. We will never read it. May that not be our story anymore. May that not be our portion anymore. May we change. May our testimony be dramatically different. This is Kwame Nkrumah writing. The day following this news was my 47th birthday. I woke up early in spite of a restless night and stared at myself in the mirror. Quote, is it possible that all men feel as young as I do on their 47th birthday? I ask my reflection. Nkrumah was a very interesting character. Very, very interesting personality. I always tell people who are close to me that it's such a pity that we didn't meet Nkrumah. Because if you calculate Nkrumah's age, if he could have been alive, I saw Gbedema. I saw Gbedema in court. His foreign finance minister, I saw him in court. Gbedema, he was always there. In 96, Gbedema was there. Nkrumah died in 1972, I believe, at the age of 62. If you add 20 years to that, in 62, that's 82. So he would have been what? 82. If you add 10 years to that, he would have been 92. At least the people who started journalism in the 80s, Kofi Kumsin and Kweku Sechado, and they would have interviewed Nkrumah. It was such a tragedy that they took him from us. Yes, they did. They took him from us. I don't know who did, but they did. All right, let's move on.